You know, I think Kash Patel should just call it quits at the FBI. He should just hang out in Congress yelling at people every single day. That's his. I think he's really found his. You know, when you have a strength, you're supposed to lean into it. And I think yelling at Congress people is Kash Patel's strength. What's up? This is Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Thanks so much for joining us today, folks. A lot going on today. Donald Trump is going after the big media again. He's going after the New York Times, suing them for $15 billion. That's B with a billion with a B. $15 billion. We'll get into that. Also, he's attacking ABC reporters who, by the way, are horrible people. They're just horrible people. I always said, my wife watches the ABC News, and I always say we shouldn't watch ABC News because David Muir is awful, just terrible, just a no good. What David Muir did during the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, really, I had a shred of I guess I liked him a little bit, I would say, but now I can't stand it. No one at ABC News is credible. No one at ABC is worth their salt. And Donald Trump proved it once again. In fact, they proved it once again yesterday with the abhorrent comments they made after the sentencing of Tyler Robinson, the alleged assassin who took out Charlie Kirk. I can't even believe, I don't know in what world anyone would think this was okay, let alone a news reporter, what ABC did yesterday. And Donald Trump let him have it. Donald Trump said, "Uh-oh, that's not going to happen." But before we get to that, I'd like to start with a little addition of something I like to call Jerry Nadler is a big fat idiot. Jerry Nadler is a big fat idiot. We know this guy, and thank God he's retiring. Thank God. I don't know what two people they're going to find to replace him, but it's gonna take at least that many. I don't know what two people they're going to find to replace Jerry Nadler, but thank God he's out of Congress because this guy's losing it. He's losing everything but weight. He was talking about Charlie Kirk, and instead of calling him Charlie Kirk, well, I'll just play you this.
Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted.
That's Jerry Nadler from New York calling Charlie Kirk Charlie King.
Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted.
Yeah, and everyone kind of is just ignoring him and here's the problem with Congress. So many of these people are so old and they've been there so long and nobody really respects them anymore and they're all half demented that they say things like this and people just ignore it. They're just like, oh, there he goes, Charlie King. And I guess he was confusing Martin Luther King Jr. and Charlie Kirk, both of whom were assassinated by Democrats for the things that they thought and they said. And they told crowds. So I guess that's what he was talking about. But it doesn't matter because it's just a bad look for Jerry Nadler to mispronounce the name of a guy who was beloved by millions, who was honored, who will be honored by the president and the vice president, who are going to be flying to Phoenix, Arizona for this massive ceremony. It's the funeral, of course, but also the ceremony in remembrance of Charlie Kirk.
Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted.
Yeah, and by the way, we also should not forget or ignore the horrible argument that he's making there, saying that President Donald Trump and Republicans are politicizing the murder, the assassination, the political assassination of somebody simply because they believed in Jesus and the Constitution. The political assassination, the murder in cold blood, the aggravated murder in front of thousands of witnesses, many of whom were young, impressionable children. We should not let Donald Trump or anybody take advantage of that and use it for their own political auspices. That's what he wanted.
Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted.
It's ironic that he thinks the right is going after free speech, seeing as how it's the left that put a bullet in someone's throat while they were exercising their right of free speech. Anyway, we'll get into more of that because it is Constitution Day today, which is exciting. And what better way to celebrate Constitution Day than to subscribe to one of the most constitutionally sound programs there is. My entire congressional platform is the Bill of Rights. Just all you got to do is crack open the Constitution. All you got to do is read those Bill of Rights. That's my platform. Protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Fun fact, it should be everybody's platform, but unfortunately it's not. So make sure you subscribe to this channel so that we can keep you abreast of who's trying to take away your constitutional rights, who's lying to you when it comes to the Constitution, who's flat out ignoring and shredding the Constitution, and how you can protect yourself against them. And of course, save this fantastically great republic given to us by God and our founding fathers so that we may pursue happiness our entire lives long. And that is something that we thrive to do here every single day. We want you to join us. Hit the notification bell too, because that's really cool. That way, whenever we publish anything or we go live, you'll get notified immediately. You won't even have to go look for us. It'll be right there. So President Donald Trump is in England. And, you know, say what you will about the English. They speak funny. You know, I get it. They have that weird accent. You know, they have the bad teeth is another common. That's another common thing when you talk about the British people. They have bad. They don't really. Their food's not the best. It's not like, you know, French cuisine or Italian cuisine. It's just, you know, it's like fried fish guts and stuff like that. But anyway, it doesn't matter because they do know how to put on a show, man. When it comes to these state visits, when it comes to honoring you know, other foreign leaders that visit the UK, King Charles and the rest of the merry wives of Windsor, I don't even know who they are. They really know how to put on a show. Here they are. Look at this. This is Donald Trump and the First Lady Melania Trump visiting King Charles. They're visiting everybody there. There's carriages and horses, and there's the beefeaters. What do you call the Royal Guard? And they're all in this little tent, and they're playing the national anthem. And there's Camilla, which, by the way, look how Camilla and King Charles are so short. Like Camilla Parker Bowles, she's so short. I mean, Melania is what, 6 feet tall, I think. But they're all very short. Anyway, that's Donald Trump, and he's saluting as they play the national anthem, which was very nice. But look, there's also here they are with this is President Donald Trump inspecting the troops, and he's walking down the row with the red-coated, I don't know, general captain, I don't know what they are, and he's looking at all these beefeaters, and he's probably thinking that's a lot of gin. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that's a lot of gin. And he actually goes and talks to one of the guys, which I don't think you're supposed to do, but Donald Trump's like, "What? I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do." And then look, here they are playing the Sousa March. And they're marching, and I wonder if they knew the Stars and Stripes Forever or if they had to learn it. I imagine they probably know this. I mean, if any band worth their salt is going to be able to whip out a good Sousa March, you know, on demand. But it's nice that they made the president feel at home. But they do know, man, they do know their ceremonies. They do know how to put on airs. Piers Morgan was discussing the political ramifications of this, and he pointed out something that I don't know if it's true or not. It's Piers Morgan, so take it with a grain of salt. But he mentioned how many people were together in this same spot and what that meant politically for Donald Trump and the opinions of the world when it comes to President Donald Trump. Listen to this.
No question. I think this is a real statement by the King and by the senior members of the royal family. I mean, it's very rare they all get together like this for a visit by a foreign leader. They're doing it to make a point. I think they recognize the world feels a little bit precarious right now. You have two raging wars in Ukraine and in Gaza, and you have a lot of people, particularly since the appalling murder of Charlie Kirk, I think are feeling very tense about the way that issues like free speech are going in the world. And I think that the royal family want to make a statement. They are aligning themselves very publicly today with the President of the United States, who they know actually believes in his heart fundamentally in the principles of free speech, as indeed do they. So I think that this is it's a statement by the royal family. We're going to roll out the ultimate red carpet. And again, just to stress, I've not seen this done for any other world leader. This is unprecedented, and bearing in mind that Donald Trump is getting a second state visit, but the first one was for a different monarch. So nobody has ever, US president or anybody else, has ever had a state visit with two different monarchs. So that, again, I think is an important thing to say. Last time it was with Queen Elizabeth. This time it's with her eldest son, King Charles. That is real history. And I keep coming back to how his mother would feel, Donald Trump's mother, Mary, how she would have felt about this, watching her son, just on a human level, you know, having these extraordinary moments with the Queen and then with the King. I mean, really remarkable, I think.
Yeah, remarkable. Piers Morgan's so excited because he gets really high pitched. He's like, remarkable, I think. 2 state visits, one with Queen Elizabeth and then with her eldest son, King Charles. And it's historic. No president ever has had 2 state visits with 2 different monarchs. It's unprecedented. And it's Donald Trump, of course, because Donald Trump does unprecedented things. But the statement, he says, is they're standing arm in arm with President Donald Trump, who is the ultimate purveyor and protector of free speech. You know who isn't? Keir Starmer. There's a huge problem in the United Kingdom right now. There's a huge problem in the UK because they're squashing free speech. They're arresting people for posting stuff on Facebook that they don't agree with. They're arresting people for memes on Facebook. They're arresting people for standing across the street from abortion clinics and mosques and issuing any kind of proclamation that may stand against what the state believes is normal and or acceptable in the UK. And they come to your house and they go, hello, we'd like your laptop, please. And any old cell phones you may have. And right, you're going to come with us, please. You're going to come with us down to the station. Thank you very much. You're not going to work today. That's what they do. They arrest people. They haul them. They take all of their electronic devices and it's for free speech violations. That's a huge problem. That's why you had 1 million people jumping up and down in London last weekend. 1 million people chanting Charlie Kirk while waving their flags. The sense of nationalism is about to explode in the UK, and Donald Trump is a huge part of that. Charlie Kirk is a huge part of that. And the royal family apparently wants to be on the right side of all of that. Free speech, by the way, and again, this is really something that, on Constitution Day, I feel like we shouldn't have to remind people. But yesterday we reminded everybody, we'll remind you again today, free speech goes both ways. And if you do or say something that somebody doesn't like or doesn't approve of, then guess what? They have the right to do or say something that you may not like or approve of. And for years, for the longest time, for the longest time, as Billy Joel once said, for the longest time, presidents and I guess you would say any leader, presidents, governors, Congress people, senators, anybody, they would self-censor. They would self-censor whenever it became a free speech issue. Whenever they were attacked by somebody and somebody said, you're horrible or you're this, or some periodical or news person would say something awful about them, they would just cower. They didn't want to come across as bad or angry or whatever. They always thought that bad publicity was bad publicity, but Donald Trump knows there's no such thing as bad publicity. And so Donald Trump would fight back and he'd say, look, you have your opinion and it's wrong. I have my opinion and I'm going to voice it. And he would go on Twitter back when it was Twitter and he'd voice his opinion, and then he got thrown off of Twitter. So he created X and he would voice his opinion on X, and he totally removed the middleman. It used to be that if a president did or said something, you only read about it in the paper after it had been twisted and turned and edited and pushed through the meat grinder and made to fit whatever narrative that paper, that newspaper, or that television station, whatever narrative they wanted you to believe, that's what they were going to publish. And the truth never really came out. And a lot of politicians never really were misunderstood in a lot of ways because their words were taken out of context. Now, thanks to the internet, thanks to Truth Social, thanks to shows like this, you get the whole nine. You get everything. When Jerry Nadler calls Charlie Kirk Charlie King.
Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy, I believe, Charlie King would have wanted.
Yeah, that would have been cut out. You never would have read about that in the paper. You never would have seen that on the internet. The internet didn't exist, on television. But now you get everything, every ridiculous thing these people say is put out there. And Donald Trump, too, pushes back. And he's pushing back against ABC and the New York Times. The New York Times yesterday got hit with a lawsuit by Donald Trump for $15 billion. Trump sues the New York Times for articles questioning his success. This, by the way, is from the New York Times. The lawsuit, filed by the president in federal court in Florida, claims the Times defamed him and sought to undermine his campaign in the 2024 election. President Trump accused the New York Times and 4 of its reporters of defaming him and claiming Pardon me while I sneeze. And claiming, hold on. Thank you. Where I lost my place. Oh, claiming that a series of articles sought to undermine his candidacy and disparage his reputation as a successful businessman. In a lawsuit filed on Monday in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida, Mr. Trump said the articles and a book published by two of the journalists were specifically designed to try and damage President Trump's business, personal, and political reputation. According to the complaint, the articles and the book were published with actual malice toward Mr. Trump and caused enormous economic losses and damage to his professional and occupational interests. The lawsuit asked for damages of at least $15 billion. $15 billion. A spokesman for the Times responded, this lawsuit has no merit. It lacks any legitimate legal claims and instead is an attempt to stifle and discourage independent reporting. The New York Times will not be deterred by intimidation tactics. We will continue to pursue the facts without fear or favor and stand up for journalists' First Amendment right to ask questions on behalf of the American people. So Donald Trump reads these articles in the New York Times that he says are disparaging, that he says are wrong, that he says are designed with one purpose, and that is to weaken him as a businessman and as a member of society and to interfere in the election. And so he sues the Times and they come back and say it's frivolous. You know who else said the lawsuit was frivolous? CBS. CBS, when Donald Trump sued 60 Minutes for deceptively editing the Kamala Harris interview. You know what happened in that one? There was a large settlement for about $16 million. ABC also called the lawsuit frivolous against Donald Trump, and they paid $16 million. In fact, a reporter at the White House asked President Donald Trump, an ABC reporter at the White House asked President Donald Trump about this lawsuit that he just filed for $15 billion against the New York Times, and here's what he said.
Should probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country. But we're fixing it.
I mean, this is interesting. I want you to listen to this again to what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump, now, what happened in the ABC suit, just to refresh your memory in case you forgot, was Donald Trump was found liable, not guilty because it was a civil suit. He was found liable for sexual misconduct against E. Jean Carroll. Now, we're not here to debate the veracity of that suit in New York City, but he was found liable of the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll, not guilty of rape. George Snuffleupagus from ABC News went on television and said Donald Trump was found guilty of rape. So Donald Trump sued ABC and George Snuffleupagus, and they settled out of court for $15 million plus $1 million for his legal expenses. And that $15 million is going to go toward the Trump presidential library, which I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to be a great library because there's millions and millions of dollars of media money that's pouring into it. CBS, ABC, maybe now the New York Times. And he said to that reporter, this is really interesting. He goes, what you guys did at ABC is really a form of hate speech, isn't it?
Should probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right?
ABC paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech.
ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look,
that is really, when you put it that way, Donald Trump sees things in a way that makes sense, but that nobody else will ever describe it. And he says, ABC maliciously, with malicious intent, lied about me. George Snuffleupagus knew the truth. He'd been covering the story. George Snuffleupagus, you know what? He worked in the Clinton White House. He was the deputy communications director, whatever. I don't even know what he was. But he's a Democrat lifelong. He's worked in news long enough. He's covered enough presidential elections. He's covered enough court cases to know the difference between a civil suit and a criminal suit. He knows the difference between being liable and being guilty. He knows the difference between the two. And he still went on television. He still went on the news, and he tried to brand Donald Trump a rapist, which is, I got to be honest with you, illegal. It's called libel. It's called slander. It's called whatever you want to call it. And he did so, and he had to pay up because ABC's lawyers knew. They knew as soon as they saw that lawsuit land that they would not be able to win, so they settled out of court. They saw as soon as that lawsuit landed, they said, all right, let's go to our legal slush fund, see how much we have there, and let's pay this guy to go away. And that's exactly what they did. And in doing so, they surrendered. And I can't imagine George Snuffleupagus was at all happy with it. Well, ABC didn't learn their lesson, much like CBS and the New York Times. Nobody learns their lesson. They continue to go after Donald Trump. They continue to lie in order to push their own narratives, win awards like the New York Times got for all of their faulty COVID report. I mean, it's just their January 6th. It's all just crazy. But anyway, they continue to move forward. And yesterday, a guy named, is it Gutman? Is that his name? Matt Gutman? Hang on, let me just make sure. I don't want to accuse somebody. Yeah, Matt Gutman. This guy. So yesterday at the end of the program, you may remember we were all watching the news. The news coming out of Utah. The Attorney General for Utah came forward or the District Attorney rather for Utah in Orem County. They came out and said, we are charging officially Tyler Robinson with 7 counts. 1 count of aggravated murder. 1 count of aggravated discharging of a weapon in public. 1 count of witness tampering for telling his roommate / girl boyfriend to delete texts. Another count for telling them not to talk to the police. Then there was the disposal of evidence, the gun and the clothes, all this stuff. 7 counts. Oh yeah. Also, we're recommending the death penalty in this case because of the aggravated nature of these assaults, and also the fact that it happened in front of young children. It was one of the worst crimes we've ever seen committed, so we believe this guy should be put to death, and that's what we're going to be going for. So we're all watching that happen. They're reading out the text messages back and forth, and afterward, this guy, Matt Gutman from ABC News, I guess he's talking with David Muir, one of the worst people in the entire world, and David Muir and Matt Gutman are discussing the charges against Tyler Robinson, who allegedly in cold blood shot Charlie Kirk in the throat with 1 bullet, something he'd planned for weeks, for a week rather, for no other reason than he didn't like what the guy was saying, did it in front of 3,000 people, many of whom were young people and children, terrorized. I mean, he's a domestic terrorist. He wrote political messages on the shell casings, which we were all reminded of, and we heard back and forth about all these text messages. His plan, he had this whole plan. It was premeditated. His plan. I mean, it wasn't a very good plan, but it was a plan nonetheless. And he was texting back and forth. And Matt Gutman and David Muir, while discussing this, kind of overlooked the fact that this alleged cold-blooded killer shot Charlie Kirk for political differences, created a massive domestic terror event, and sent ripple shockwaves around the world. They kind of neglected that part, and they wanted to focus on the loving messages he sent to his trans buddy.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect.
That is ABC reporter Matt Gutman saying that the text messages between alleged assassin Tyler Robinson and his trans buddy were touching and heartfelt. I'm going to play that from the beginning because I don't want you to misinterpret it. I don't want you to say Mark Kaye's taking this out of context. There's no taking this out of context. Matt Gutman from ABC and David Muir from ABC are having a conversation about one of the most brutal assassinations we've seen since, I don't know, RFK Jr. When was the last time we saw, RFK, not RFK Jr., RFK Sr. RFK Sr., he was shot in a restaurant, in the kitchen of a restaurant in a hotel. And I don't think it was televised the way this was. There weren't 3,000 witnesses. This may have been even more brutal. Martin Luther King, probably not since JFK was on television when he was in Dallas. Probably not since John F. Kennedy was shot and killed have we seen this brutal a live event of political violence in our history. And Matt Gutman and David Muir are saying it's very touching.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was, Tyler.
It was. David and Matt discussing the love story. This is a guy, by the way, I want you to point out, this is a guy facing 7 counts and the death penalty. And ABC is like, this is a very touching love story if you think about it. The dichotomy of this brutal murder against the love that he feels. The touching and heartwarming love story, that the love that he has for his trans buddy back home, and the text messages. You know what I heard from the text messages? I heard that a crazed lunatic who clearly was mentally unstable premeditated a murder with a deadly weapon, with a very expensive scope that he knew would do the trick, planned it out, left notes in case he was successful, talked about it openly on the internet, executed Charlie Kirk in broad daylight, ran, hid, disposed of evidence, tried to tamper with witnesses, did everything that this district attorney told us he did. Brutally and without remorse, joked about how effective his grandpa's gun was afterward. And ABC wants to focus on the heartwarming and touching love story. These people are disgusting. These people are sickos. Thank God I don't work in the media anymore, man. This is just awful. It's awful, awful, awful. I can't imagine being Charlie Kirk's wife or family member, mom, dad, brother, anybody who knew and loved the guy. I mean, I've met him I met him twice. And, I feel like I lost somebody that I really knew, not because of our relationship, but because of the messaging of TPUSA and the organization and how many times I'd interacted with it and the feeling of joy and euphoria I got when I was around these kids, knowing that the future was going to be so bright ahead. I mean, that's what I got out of it. But I can't imagine actually having known Charlie Kirk and listening to this guy say, man, this brutal murderer, this assassin, allegedly, he's such a touching, loving guy, isn't he? Yes, we know he put a bullet in Charlie's throat because he hated his politics. Didn't like that he was a Christian. Didn't like that he believed transgenderism was a mental disorder. Didn't like that he thought homosexuality was a sin. Didn't like any of that stuff. So I killed him. But you know what? I really loved the trans guy I was living with. It's so... Somebody, I think it was, I forget who it was, somebody on Twitter posted this story and said, you don't hate the media enough. You don't. If you're going to hate anybody, it should be the media. Matt Gutman, ABC, posted, I guess it's an apology? I don't know. He wrote, yesterday, I tried to underscore the jarring contrast between this cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk, a man who dedicated his life to public dialogue, and the personal, disturbing texts read aloud by the Utah County Attorney at the press conference. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This is the problem. This first part here is the problem. This guy is a news reporter from ABC. His job is to report the news. His job is to go to wherever they were in Utah, listen to the press conference, pull out the highlights, tell David Muir what he heard. Instead, he doesn't do that. He thinks he's a poet. He thinks he's there to interpret the text messages. He thinks he's some kind of criminal psychologist. And he says, you know what I tried to do? I tried to underscore the jarring contrast between the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the text message, the personal text messages read by the attorney. That's not your job, dude. Your job is to give us the facts, but you don't do that because you work for ABC. I deeply regret that my words did not make that clear, but let there be zero doubt here. I unequivocally condemn this horrific crime and the pain it caused Charlie Kirk's family, those who were forced to witness it at UVU, and the millions of people he inspired. Let me be clear, there should be zero doubt. If there were zero doubt, you wouldn't be issuing an apology, now would you? If there were zero doubt, people wouldn't be outing you on the internet saying this dude is wrapped up in the love story between the killer and the trans dude that lived in his apartment. There is doubt. Not zero, but a lot of doubt. There is doubt that ABC can adequately report the truth after Matt Gutman's statement yesterday on ABC News. And that is why Donald Trump says that there is hate in the heart of these ABC reporters. That is why Donald Trump says it's a form of hate speech.
We probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you.
I don't know how much money they're going to have to pay TPUSA, but I imagine TPUSA is going to be well funded after all of their lawsuits against ABC and whomever. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there who are saying dumb stuff in the wake of this whole horrible tragedy. Montel Williams was on CNN, and I don't know why Montel Williams was on CNN. I guess that's barely the first question. Montel Williams was on CNN, and he said something similar but different. He was arguing, and again, I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at Montel Williams. He was arguing that this wasn't a political assassination. His argument was, and I don't know, maybe he didn't hear the press conference where the show casings had political messages. Ciao Bella, Bella Bella, ciao ciao, you know, that kind of thing. That Antifa song from Mussolini's Italy in World War II. Maybe he didn't hear the hey fascist catch message that was written on the one bullet. Maybe he didn't know about the arguments that this guy had with his family members about Charlie Kirk and how much he was hated and the things they'd said in the Discord. Maybe they didn't know that he'd planned this. He'd planned this entire event to happen at a Charlie Kirk event, a Turning Point USA event, which is a political rally. Look, I mean, again, maybe Montel Williams doesn't follow the news, but he doesn't believe that this was a politically motivated shooting.
But here, I think I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Although I do think there's clearly an ideological difference. That's why I played about what they said about the family. I mean, the ideological difference that he was reacting to wasn't just Charlie Kirk. It was also maybe his dad. I mean, his father was, according to him, MAGA. So that conflict was there, clearly.
But this is a young man who's dating a person in transition. And I'm a conservative father,
And so Montel Williams is saying this wasn't politically motivated. He was trying to protect his trans lover from Charlie Kirk. Was Charlie Kirk a threat to his trans lover? Is that what it was? By killing Charlie Kirk, somehow his trans lover is now safer? His dad, he was mad at his dad. If he was mad at his dad, why didn't he take it out on his dad? Why did he take it out on Charlie Kirk? Either way you look at this, it is politically motivated. If Charlie Kirk was a threat to his trans lover back home, then that is because of Charlie Kirk's religious teachings, his ideology, and the political movement because look, Charlie Kirk was a Christian first, and he said, I want to be remembered for my faith, and I want to bring people closer to the church, and I want to make heaven crowded. He didn't say, I want to make the RNC crowded. He said, I want to make heaven crowded. He didn't say, I want to make the Republican Party crowded. I want to make the Republican Party butts to nuts. No, he said, I want heaven crowd. I want to make heaven crowded, which means he wants more people living their lives in the model, in the shadow of Jesus Christ, and emulating Jesus Christ and being Christ-like toward each other. That was his goal. That was his mission. And it just so happened that the Democrat Party was preaching the opposite. So in order to make heaven crowded, to make more people find Jesus, to put forth all of the spirituality and the love and the guidance and the morality that he lived his life by and he was urging others to live their lives by, he had to support Republicans. Why? Because Democrats, they believe the opposite of everything he believed. They believe that they don't even believe in the Constitution. You've got Tim Kaine sitting in the Senate going, oh, you know what? Your rights don't come from God, and they don't come from the founding fathers. They come from government and law. Oh, and guess who's government and law? Tim Kaine and the rest of Congress. They believe they're all powerful. And anybody who believes in a God, anybody who gives power and glory to God above Congress, that's blasphemy in their minds. And so they're going to deal with you any way that they can. It's really wild how ABC and CNN and the rest of these people are doing their best, faced with the, almost impossible task. When you see the worldwide reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination, when you see the worldwide reaction to this brutal murder of political motive, politically motivated carnage is what it was. And when you see the world's reaction to it, God, it's got to be so tough for these Democrats in the media to go, oh, how are we going to spin this? Well, what if we get Montel Williams out there? He's kind of old and feeble looking. What if we get Montel Williams out there to say it wasn't politically motivated? He was just trying to protect his trans lover, which basically is the same thing Matt Gutman was saying, only Matt Gutman was saying it in a way weirder and creepier, manner. Matt Gutman's out there going, it's so heartfelt and touching. The love that he had for his trans person back at the house. It's the same narrative, two different. And I think that when you see something horrible like this happen, it really pushes people toward one side of the aisle. And for a lot of getting that's movement. There's so many. Scott Presler has been able to register so many new voters to the Republican Party wherever he happens to go. And God bless that guy. You know, it's really truly incredible to see how many people are in Florida. We're this close in Duval County, Florida, just a couple thousand away from overtaking the Democrat Party. And Duval County is one of the last red states in the country. So that too is very exciting to see. That too is also it's a boon, if you will. It is something that is positive since President Donald Trump came back into office. But there's a lot of good. The border's secure. We've got, crime is under control. Donald Trump's cleaning up DC and Memphis. Investment. Oh, Tesla's skyrocketing again. The stock market is skyrocketing again. Gold, by the way, has never been hotter. In fact, gold is up 25%. And I know this because my friends at Augusta Precious Metals send me emails all the time going, did you know gold's up 25% since Donald Trump came back into office? And I'm like, I knew that. My buddy JD is like, Mark, gold is skyrocketing. Make sure you tell everybody about our gold IRAs. And I go, absolutely. I do all the time. I tell them to go to getmarksgold.com because if you have cash in a 401k, if you have $100,000 cash, because look, Augusta Precious Metals, they want you to take full advantage. They only deal with people who have a minimum of $100 in an IRA, in a 401k, and any other kind of investment. They'll take that money, they'll roll it into a precious metals IRA, and they will give you a better safe haven investment. They're Better Business Bureau rated, like 4 stars or whatever it is. They get tons of great reviews from all of the investing periodicals, and you can get a free information packet by going to getmarksgold.com. Getmarksgold.com is where you go. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to click on it. Getmarksgold.com. Find out all about Augusta Precious Metals and how Donald Trump is making gold great again. Fun fact, gold was never bad, but it's even better. It's even better than it was. And not only that, but he's making government great again too. He's getting the weaponization out of government. He's getting the DEI out of government. He's getting the woke crap out of government. And one of the things he's done is he's dismantled the Democrats' secret police department, aka the FBI. The FBI. The FBI was the secret police for the Joe Biden administration, only it wasn't all that secret. Joe Biden wanted something done, or whoever was controlling Joe Biden wanted something done, so they'd call up Merrick Garland and they'd say, Catholics celebrating Latin Mass, go. And all of a sudden, the FBI, they were sent out to harass and attack and investigate Catholics celebrating the Latin Mass. Then there were these parents, these uppity parents who actually cared about their kids. Can you imagine? These obnoxious parents were going to parent-teacher association meetings, if you can believe it, and they were arguing for their kids' health and safety and education. And they said, we don't want our kids to have to wear masks in school because it's unnecessary. And they said, we don't want our kids having to read all this DEI woke crap. And we don't want our kids learning about their teacher's gender or having their teacher tell them it's okay to change your gender, because we don't believe that it is, and it's our kids. And God forbid these parents go to the parent-teacher association meetings to voice these concerns about their own children. All of a sudden, Merrick Garland gets a phone call, parent-teacher association meetings, go. And he, dispatches FBI agents to these meetings around the country to intimidate the parents, to get them to shut up. Donald Trump was running for office again. Donald Trump said, I'm going to run for office again. He went to Mar-a-Lago. He had a big ceremony in November. He said, I'm running. And I'm going to win. And what happened? Mar-a-Lago, FBI, open up. We have a warrant. We're going to search the premises for top secret documents that we already know are here because we've already seen them. And we want you to shut off those cameras, and your lawyers can't come in. And we're going to rifle through Melania's underwear drawer, and we're going to break into your safe, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then we're going to take these top secret documents, again, that we already knew where they were. We already knew what they were because we've already been here. And we're going to take photos of them and put them all over the internet and tell everybody these are sensitive documents that Donald Trump had in his possession. So sensitive that we took photos of them and put them all over the internet. They didn't do it because they were enforcing the law. No laws had been broken. They were doing it because they were the secret police department of the Joe Biden administration. And they were there to terrorize conservatives and Christians and parents and Republicans and anybody and everybody who disagreed with them. Well, Kash Patel's here now, and those days are gone. So are the agents who went along with those orders. And the FBI, slowly but surely, it's not perfect. Slowly but surely, they're getting rid of the Biden loyalists. They're getting rid of the people who did these investigations, quote unquote, that flew right in the face of everything that the FBI stands for. And now they are making the FBI great again. And the Democrats, who for years loved the fact that they could pick up the phone, call Merrick Garland, and have the FBI do whatever dastardly thing they wanted them to do, they are furious that they've lost control. So they are hauling Kash Patel in, and they are trying to make him look like the bad guy. But thank God for Jim Jordan. Thank God for Jim Jordan, who pointed out repeatedly that the FBI under Kash Patel and Donald Trump's second administration has done nothing but good for the United States of America.
Director, yes or no, is the FBI still spying on parents at school board meetings?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Catholics?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still spying on President Trump?
I don't believe so.
Is the FBI still censoring Americans?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans for shopping at Cabela's or purchasing Bibles?
Nobody is targeted for their faith.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans who are pro-life?
Nobody is targeting anyone for their beliefs.
Is the FBI still cooking the books on crime data?
The crime data is real.
Is the FBI still purging agents for conservative viewpoints?
No one at the FBI has asked their viewpoints on politics.
Is the FBI still labeling the Betsy Ross flag, the flag of the American Revolution, a hate symbol?
No.
Well, maybe that's why you've been able to, what was the number? 23,000 bad guys you've arrested, a huge increase from the same time period in the previous administration. I think you said 1,400 predators, 4,000 children rescued. Were those the facts?
4,700, 35% increase on children rescued.
Yeah. And you got the guy that, Abbey Gate?
We got the Abbey Gate guy.
We had a guy from the 4th District of Ohio who lost his life there serving our country. We appreciate that. Maybe when you're not focused on politics, you can actually do what the FBI is supposed to do. Go get the bad guys, right?
That's what the men and women of the FBI do.
There you go. We go get the bad guys. That's what we do. That's our job. We go get the bad guys. And some of those bad guys, well, they may be elected Democrat officials. And that's maybe why. That's maybe why they're not as excited. Also, Kash Patel revealed something very disturbing today in his testimony. I think this was earlier this morning. Listen to this.
Counterterrorism work, cyber attacks, and foreign adversaries are something the FBI must never sleep on, and we are not sleeping. In the counterintelligence space alone, this year to date, 30% increase in counterintelligence arrests from the DPRK, Russia, Iran, and China. And I want the American people to know, in this setting, there's a lot of work that the brave men and women in the FBI are doing we just can't get into, but they don't stop. Our cyber threats, ransomware attacks, those harming our children online. We have nearly a 20% increase in indictments and arrests in 7 months alone this year. We're going after those that harm our malware, infrastructure systems, telecom systems, and energy structure. Combating SALT and Vault Typhoons are just a little bit of the examples we're doing. Maybe most importantly, under the counterterrorism and domestic terrorism umbrella, are nihilist, violent extremists, and those that label themselves 764, who wish to go online and convince children to maim and mutilate themselves and commit suicide. And we are producing record numbers of arrests under that umbrella organization. We even stopped an individual in the 764 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl.
Okay, this 764, I never heard of this until today. The 764 network is a group of individuals who go online and inspire children to harm, mutilate, and even commit suicide. This is the 764 network. They caught somebody who was trying to get a girl to commit suicide all online. This is the kind of thing that we've never heard of. Why have we never heard of this kind of thing before? Why? Well, because you had Democrats under Joe Biden's administration convincing kids it was okay to mutilate themselves if they were transitioning. And that is something that Kash Patel and Donald Trump and most of Americans never approved of.
And this is what I've done in the 6-4 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl. He is now in custody. Transparency remains one of my main priorities at the FBI. And this is what I've done in my 7 months at the helm. We've produced more than 33,000 pages of documents to Congress to a variety of committees, including, I believe, 7,500 to this committee alone, if memory serves me correct. To put the 33,000 in perspective, my predecessor in 7 years produced 13,000 pages in total to the United States Congress. His predecessor in 4 years produced 3,000 pages in total. I repeat, I have produced 33,000 pages in 7 years to this Congress and will continue to do so. I'm dedicated to restoring the trust and the mission and the integrity of the FBI, and we cannot do so without congressional oversight, and I promise you I will continue to do so.
That is Kash Patel giving his statement to the House, I think, Judiciary Committee. Now, there's Democrats in the House, too, just like there's Democrats in the Senate. There's Democrats everywhere. We try our best, but they're still there. One of them is Jamie Raskin from Maryland. And Jamie Raskin from Maryland, you may remember this guy. He was, he's just one of the most obnoxious representatives I think we have. He comes from a very solidly blue state and a blue district, so he knows he's not going anywhere. He was one of the Maryland Man guys because it is, of course, his state where Abrego Garcia hails from. And Jamie Raskin tried to dig into Kash Patel again about this testimony, which they all harp on, but they don't seem to understand the law. And luckily, Kash Patel is there to call them out and say, do you even understand the law?
And let me make something crystal clear. I never said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic other people, other women, and they're not other victims. This is the investigation we were given from 2006, 7, and 8, and the search warrants from 2006, 7, and 8. That's what we're working with.
Well, wait, have you released all of the stuff that the FBI has seized from Epstein's house? The computers, the emails, the file cabinets, the documents? What about the financial records? Have you released all of that?
Everything the court has allowed us to release.
Which court are you talking about?
3 separate federal courts have come in and said...
We're talking about the evidence you've got. It's got nothing to do with what those courts have.
Do you have any idea how the law works?
Wait,
do you want me to break the law in a federal judge's order?
No, I want you to follow your own word, Director Patel. You said up there it was under the direct control of the FBI director. He had the black book.
Everything I have direct control over, we have gone to court. You haven't.
Complete your sentence. Everything you have direct control over, you said.
Have gone to court, and everything we have direct control over.
Complete your sentence. You said everything.
Release. We're releasing.
Yeah, he asked him to complete his sentence while he's yelling over him. Complete your sentence. Complete your sentence. And Cash Patel's like, okay, no, complete your sentence. Dan Goldman, you may remember this guy. Dan Goldman called ICE agents the Gestapo. He likened them to stormtroopers in Nazi Germany. This is also the guy that met with Joe Biden and tried to tell everybody Joe Biden was 100%. He was one of the first. He was one of the first to come out and say, Joe Biden, this guy's horrible, by the way. This is the guy that said that Donald Trump needed to be terminated. You may remember that as well, too. This is the Dan Goldman. He's still in Congress because he's from New York, and I guess they like people like that. And he's trying to argue again with Kash Patel about wanting Kash Patel to break a law. So again, Kash Patel says, look, I mean, I can explain the law to you, but you're a prosecutor and a lawmaker. I don't feel like I should have to.
Did names of the victims.
We are releasing as much as legally allowed. That's why we went back to
how
the
is
courts.
that? How is that not legally allowed?
Sir, do you know how court orders work? Do you know how protective orders
Actually,
work? Do you know how
Mr.
sealing
Patel,
orders
I was
work?
a real prosecutor for 10 years. I know exactly how.
So I was a
court
fake
orders.
one?
And I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took.
You should know that as a real prosecutor, when the court hand downs a protective order and a motion to seal, the material is sealed unless
So
that
your
judge
testimony
waives
here
it.
is that all of those witness statements are under a court order, a protective order.
We are providing everything we can legally provide.
No, that's not my
Congress has
question.
sent us a
My
subpoena.
question is, why are those witness statements that are not grand jury testimony, that if they were under a protective order are no longer under a protective order, why are they not being released?
How are they not under a protective
Why
order?
are you not going to the court like you did for the grand jury testimony to unseal those records?
The DOJ did go to the court.
No, not on those records. Why aren't you going? You just went on grand jury.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You are hiding the Epstein files,
Time
Mr.
of the
Patel.
gentleman has expired.
You are part of the cover-up.
Can I respond?
Sure can.
Jim Jordan's my favorite, by the way. Jim, can I respond? Sure can. You go for it, buddy.
Part of the cover-up.
Can I respond?
Sure can.
Any allegations that I'm a part of a cover-up to protect child sexual trafficking and victims of human trafficking and sexual crimes is patently and categorically false in the work of my
So I hope you will talk to them when they have requested to speak with you. Because the victims have requested and you are not.
That's the Democrat playbook is to just yell. Just yell when they have nothing to go on, when they have no proof, truth, backing, agenda, opinions, ideas. They just yell. We saw it all yesterday. We're seeing it all again. We're seeing it all again today. Josh Hawley was on with, I think it was Jesse Waters. And Josh Hawley was asked about the FBI investigating Charlie Kirk, which is something we heard about yesterday. We found out from Chuck Grassley in the Senate committee that the Arctic Frost investigation not only was investigating President Donald Trump through Jack Smith, but also other organizations, including the RNC, the the Republican Attorneys General Association, and TPUSA and its founder, Charlie Kirk. And Jesse Waters asked Josh Hawley, why?
Now. Why do you think Biden's FBI was really investigating Charlie Kirk?
Try to intimidate him. You know, it's interesting, Jesse, when I heard that today from Chairman Grassley, something came clear to me. Charlie had said to me a couple of years ago now, he'd taken me aside at one point and said, I think that we are being targeted, that TPUSA is being targeted. And he said, you know, can you help us? And I said, anything you need me to do. And he said, well, listen, I'm just finding out about this. This has got to be what he was talking about. And now we know that Joe Biden, once again, weaponized the FBI to go after his political opponents. It's nothing but terrorism. It's an attempt to silence and intimidate. I'm so glad that Charlie was not intimidated right up to the last day that he had on this earth. That is why he is such a sterling example. But you know what? What Joe Biden did in his administration, we can't ever allow to happen again. You look at the climate they created, Charlie. We're reaping the fruits of that now. The climate of hate and division and suspicion that they deliberately created for years to try to hold on to power. It's despicable, and it's time to turn the page on it.
And that's exactly what happened. That was intimidating. It was a climate of, let me just play that. I want to play that again because he described it really, really well. And of course, I totally forgot it as soon as I heard it. It was this one here. Let me just play the end part.
Why do you think Biden's
reaping the fruits of that now? The climate of hate and division and suspicion that they deliberately created for years.
The climate of hate, division and suspicion that they purposely created for years in order to hold on to power. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what it was. Hate, division, and suspicion. That's why they used the FBI. That's why they targeted Charlie Kirk. That's why they targeted TPUSA. That's why they targeted President Donald Trump. That's why they targeted January 6ers. That's why they targeted Catholics. That's why they targeted parents. That's why they targeted people who bought Bibles and shopped at Cabela's. Because they wanted to hold on to power. And the only way they could do that was by convincing more and more of the country that people who were Catholic and went to PTA meetings and went to TPUSA events and shopped at Cabela's and bought Bibles, all those people are white supremacist domestic terrorists, and we've got to band together against, and the FBI has all this proof. We're investigating them, don't you worry. We're investigating Donald Trump and his minions of MAGA supporters, don't you worry. And in doing so, they created a distorted reality, a false reality, lies basically, that grew the seeds of hatred in people like Tyler Robinson. And when the seeds of hatred grow to full capacity, well, you see what happens. Scott Adams, one of our favorite people in the entire world, was on with Tucker Carlson, and they were discussing something similar. And I just like to hear Scott Adams talk. Scott Adams, you may or may not. Scott Adams is the founder of the Dilbert cartoon, but he and I have a lot of similarities. I read his book, and I thought I was reading a book about my own life. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a creative guy. He's very conservative. He's very commonsensical, and he and I have a very, very particularly distinct look on life and business and art and creativity and news. And so I never miss a chance to hear him speak. And here he is talking to Tucker Carlson. I just want to play you this clip.
One of the big questions is, how did somebody get to that place where it seemed perfectly reasonable for them to get a gun and shoot a living human being?
Yes.
And some people know in your audience that I'm also a hypnotist. I'm a trained hypnotist. And so I tend to look at these situations through that filter. And through that filter, you can see a really clear cause and effect. Starting around, let's say 2016, there was wall-to-wall Hitler, Nazis, 24 hours. Before that, there had been other Republicans who had been accused of being Hitler. But I think that everybody treated it like hyperbole. It's just, it's a political insult, and it's the most common one, so you don't take it too seriously.
Yes.
But imagine being a young kid and growing up when the news, the people in nice clothing would go on TV, and they would say, in all seriousness, he's basically Hitler, the Nazis are coming. And you would create a mass hysteria. Now, a mass hysteria would be worse than TDS or Trump derangement syndrome, because that would be sort of what happens to an individual, that could have TDS. But if you have a lot of people who have TDS and they start talking to each other, pretty soon you've got a mass hysteria. And the mass hysteria created this, what I call a Hitlerian bubble, meaning that a lot of people are living in what they think is a reality that is just completely Hitlerized. They see Hitler everywhere, and they see it in Trump, they see it in his lieutenants. And this is different. So this is not like what we've seen before. All it takes to completely brainwash somebody to believe ridiculous things, even things that their observations should tell them are not true. All you need is people in good suits whose job makes them seem credible, to say day after day, it's the repetition that matters, Hitler, 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 and you convince people that they're living in a hellscape and they better do something about it.
That is Tucker Carlson talking to Scott Adams about the Hitlerian bubble being created by the men in suits with important jobs saying Hitler, Hitler, Hitler all over again. Who could those people be? I seem to remember Joe Biden, the president of the United States, wearing a suit and standing in front of a church in Pennsylvania with red lights behind him saying the number one threat to the United States of America isn't ISIS, it's white supremacy and domestic terrorism. It's weird. It's weird. Anyway, that's where we are today. And thank God we have Kash Patel at the FBI who is fighting against it, because it is true. What you see and what we've seen for the last several years from the Democrats, from the elected officials, from the media, is this not even, and he says, not even Trump derangement syndrome. It's now a mass hysteria where everything you see is Hitler. Donald Trump is Hitler. His generals are Hitler. If Kash Patel walks out, that guy's Hitler. Marco Rubio's Hitler. Pam Bondi is Eva Braun, I guess. Melania is Eva Braun. They're all part of the same regime. And it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does or says. The Fed is a perfect example. They love to call Donald Trump a dictator. Yet Donald Trump has not fired the Fed chief. Donald Trump has allowed the Fed to come to its own conclusion about the interest rate. He's given his opinion, his unvarnished opinion about the interest rate in the Fed chair, but he hasn't interfered. A dictator wouldn't do that. Vladimir Putin, if he has somebody in his administration disagree with him, or somebody in government he doesn't do something he wants done in a timely fashion, that person falls off of a yacht in the middle of the Baltic. That person accidentally trips and falls off of their 20-story balcony in Moscow. That's what happens in Vladimir Putin's Russia. That's a dictator for you. Donald Trump is none of those things. Anyway, it's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to see what's happening and how everything is going. But Donald Trump has put together an administration unlike any other, and he will sing their praises far and wide. Donald Trump knows that with his generals in control, working together, and that's the key thing, working together, there's nothing that he and his administration won't accomplish.
Well, first of all, I think that Pam Bondi has done an unbelievable job, and everybody agrees with that. And Kash, if you take a look at what he did with respect to this horrible person that he just captured. He did it in 2 days. It took other similar cases 4 days, 5 days, 4 years, if you look at certain shooters. Now, I have confidence in everybody in the administration. My administration, and a lot of people are saying it, not just me, it's so far the best administration ever formed.
A lot of people are saying it's the best administration ever formed. And I don't know. I've not studied presidential administrations, but of the ones that I'm familiar with, I would have to agree. Even more, more so than Donald Trump's first administration. There were a lot of holes in Donald Trump's first administration. Do you remember Rex Tillerson? Yeah, nobody else does either. But Donald Trump, he took 4 years to really figure out. And again, I think that, I'm not saying this is how it should always work, but Donald Trump's second term has been so effective. His administration has been moving so quickly with such speed and with such success. It's because Donald Trump had 4 years to properly put the pieces in place. He had 4 years to say, here's in order what my priorities are. Here's what we need to get done. First, we have to undo all the terrible things that Joe Biden did. Then we have to get rid of all these criminal thug aliens. We have to close the border. We got to fix the economy. We need tariffs on just about everybody. We got to stop all the wars, like all of them. And we'll do whatever it takes to do that. We're going to start bringing money. We got to drill, baby, drill. We got to bring money in here. And we've got to make sure that our military is the strongest, the fastest, the most lethal. We should probably change it from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. If you think that idea just popped up last week, you got another thing coming. That's an idea that Donald Trump has been stewing on for a very long time. And when it came time for the transition team, Donald Trump knew the pieces that he wanted to utilize. He knew the people he needed in place. He knew that he needed Howard Lutnick in the cabinet, and he put him in charge of commerce. He knew he needed Scott Bessent, and thank God we have Scott Bessent. Put him in the cabinet, Treasury Secretary, probably one of the best we've ever had. We've got Marco Rubio, who is, I don't know if they give awards for Secretary of State, but let's take a look at the evidence over the past 6 months already. Marco Rubio has done an exceptional job. You've got War Hegseth, who has, just by going out there and taking photos of himself in the gym, has caused enlistment to skyrocket. You've got a Democrat, former Democrat, RFK Jr., in charge of Health and Human Services, and he's doing a good job because everybody, including Republicans, who's ever taken a dime from the pharmaceutical companies, which is probably everybody in Washington, they're all trying to get rid of him. You've got, just across the board, this panel of experts who seems to be doing a really fantastic job and working together to get that job done. Chris Wright, the energy department. I mean, that's someone we never even talk about, but energy, when we unleash nuclear, when we tear down our windmills, when we get the drilling going, it's going to be, I mean, truly a really incredible second act for Donald Trump and for the United States of America. Listen, things are moving at a record pace. We have coming up here in just under a year, and we're going to really start to move into high gear with our congressional race. We have a bunch of events that are slated coming up here in October and November. December, we have our poker tournament for K's Kids, and then starting January, we're going to hit the ground running. But we appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. If you are interested in helping out, there's a link in the description of this video to markkforcongress.com. And like I said, right now we could use all the help we could get. So if you're in a position to help out, we could use all the help we can get, because things are happening and we're making waves and we're being noticed. Where people are taking notice of what's happening and what we're doing. This Charlie Kirk thing, again, it really shows people kind of who's on our side and who isn't. And there's people now that realize you have to be loud, you have to be brash, you have to be combative, you have to get in their face. And if you don't, then you're part of the problem. And if you're part of the problem, then you're not part of the solution. And so that's kind of what my campaign's been going on. And we've been doing some things over the past few weeks that have really gotten the other side to take notice. And we're serious. We're a serious candidate. We have a serious campaign. And when you get serious, that's when you really need all the support you can get, because when they start taking notice of what you're doing and saying, that's when they start attacking you. So those will probably happen before too long. But like I said, I'm really excited about it. markkforcongress.com is where you go. And then, of course, the best thing you can always do is simply subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the podcast, the live stream, subscribe to YouTube and Rumble and Spotify and iTunes, wherever you happen to be getting us. I would like you to please subscribe and set those notifications, because I want to keep you informed. I definitely want to keep entertaining you. And I want to do both at the same time. I want you to be inspired. I want you to love the Constitution, especially on this Constitution Day. I want you to know the truth about Charlie Kirk and TPUSA and what they were all fighting for. I want you to know the truth that ABC News won't tell you. This was not a love story between two trans dudes. This was a brutal murder. This is not an episode of 90 Day Fiancé. This is like the worst Dateline episode you've ever seen in your entire life. ABC News would have you feel otherwise. You need the truth from a trusted source, and that's what we try to bring you every single day. So subscribe, set those notifications, keep listening, tell a friend about it, tell an enemy about us, tell everybody about us. We've got to grow our numbers. The more people we can get under the fold of the Patriot tent, the more folks we can get listening to this podcast every single day, the more folks we can get involved in our movement, the easier it will be to fight, and win, so we can save the Republic.